Hello, boys and girls. So, today, our lesson, we are going to be talking about the first thing that we do when we read a book. And the first thing that we were going to do is that we're going to look through the pages and figure out what kind of text it is. Is it a poem? Is it fiction? Is it informational? And then we're going to also continue to jot some things down. So, let's look at our book that we started. Curious George Takes a Job. Now, this isn't a new book, but we're still going to do the same thing. We're going to look through and see if it's a poem. We're going to see if it is fiction. We're going to see if it's informational. So I'm going to look through the pages. Get my bookmark out of the way. So I see a monkey running around. I see people chasing a monkey. I see a man. I see a monkey with wings. I'm seeing a lot of words, and they don't look like they're in any sort of line, so I don't think it's a poem. It doesn't look like this is nonfiction, so I don't think it's informational. I'm going to go with fiction. And if we remember back to when we started this last week, we would know that this is fiction. And if we know anything about Curious George. So we can narrow it down, say that this is fiction. Now, when we read it, we know that this will be a fiction book, and we can go and start reading and jot some things down as we are reading. Luckily, George was close to a door. He ran out as fast as he could. After him ran the two painters, then the elevator man, and the woman who lived in the place. "Oh, my lovely room," cried the woman. "Don't let him get away." George headed for the fire escape. So last week we were talking about George and how he wasn't supposed to look into any of the rooms, how he was supposed to mind his business, and it looks like he did, and now he's trying to escape. So I'm going to write down escape. George reached the end of the fire escape. The others had not caught up with him yet. Here was his chance. They could not jump, but George could easily jump down and escape. In a moment he would be safe. Poor little George, he had forgotten that the pavement was hard as stone, not like the soft grass of the jungle. If you look closely, you can see there's tears, so he's hurt. And he's holding his foot too. Too bad, the fall broke his leg and an ambulance came to take George to the hospital. "He got what he deserved," said the woman, "making my apartment into a jungle indeed. I told him he would get into trouble," the elevator man added. "He was too curious." I'm going to write down that he broke his leg. And if we talk about character traits that we started last week, we can also say he's still curious. And that's what got him into trouble. Doesn't sound like they're being very nice to him, though. George had to lie in bed with his legs high up in a plaster cast. He was very unhappy. And it all started out so nicely. If only he had not been so curious, he could have had a lot of fun. Now it was too late. But next morning, George's friend, the man with the yellow hat, was buying his newspaper. Suddenly, he got very excited. "This is George," he shouted when he saw the picture on the front page. Quickly, he read the whole story and then ran to a telephone booth to ring to the hospital. "I am George's friend," he said to the nurse who answered the telephone. "Please take good care of him so he will get better quickly. I want to take him to a movie studio and make a picture about his life in the jungle. Don't let him get into any more mischief until I can take him away." So let's make a prediction. The man in the yellow hat said, "Please don't let him get into any more mischief until I can get there." Do we think he's going to get into some mischief? Get into some trouble from his curiosity? I'm going to write yes for my prediction, but we'll see. Finally, the day came when George could walk again. "Your friend is going to take you away this morning," said the nurse. "Just wait right here for him and don't touch anything." As soon as George was alone, he looked around at all of the strange hospital things. "I wonder what is in that big blue booth," he thought. George was very curious. It smelled funny. Suddenly, his head began to turn. Then he felt as if he were flying. Then rings and stars danced before his eyes. Then everything went dark. So if your prediction was yes, he was going to get into some mischief again, you were correct. If not, that is okay. And this is how the man with the yellow hat found George when he came to call for him. They picked him up and shook him, but they could not wake him up. He was so fast asleep that finally they had to put him under the shower. How surprised he was when he woke up. That's not a very fun way to wake up. George said goodbye to the nurse and the kind doctor. Then he and the man with the yellow hat got into the car to drive to the movie studio. In the president's office, George had to sign a contract. Now he was a movie actor. So Curious George took another job. This time he is an actor. So first he was washing windows, now he's an actor. These pages are hard to turn. In the studio, George was kept so busy all the time that he forgot to be curious. He liked the jungle that they made for him and played happily there. And when the picture was finally finished, George invited all his friends to see it. The doctor and the nurse and the ambulance driver and the man from the newspaper and the woman and the elevator man and the two painters and the cook and the reporter and all the keepers of the zoo. So all of the characters that we've had throughout the book. Now the lights went out and the picture started. This is George, the voice began. He lived in the jungle. He was a good little monkey. He had only one fault. He was too curious. The end. Alright, good job, boys and girls. Remember, the first thing we're going to do when we read our books is look through them. Is it poetry? Is it informational? Is it a fiction book? And we're going to figure out what kind of book it is, so that way when we start reading it, we have a good idea of what to expect. Have a good job. Have a good day.